in the cold silence of the Zeta Serpentis sector, where stars flickered like dying embers, the United Defense Command's flagship Arclight Dominion glided through the void cloaked in total invisibility. Captain Arlen Voss, a decorated tactician with sharp eyes and a sharper mind, stood at the command dais, arms folded behind his back. Around him, the bridge hummed quietly with controlled anticipation. He wasn't here to negotiate. Humanity had already decided. The time for diplomacy was over. Below them, nestled in the asteroid belt's shadows, the ambush fleet lay dormant, waiting for the signal. The operation was codenamed Iron Veil, a calculated strike meant to cripple the alien delegation before it reached the neutral moon of Virex 9. The aliens, known as the Alvari, were advancing peace talks, a fragile thread the UDC's ruling council now deemed a liability. Voss' second-in-command, Commander Lyra Mon, approached, her boots whispering against the carbon fiber flooring. Recon drones confirm alien movement. Arrival within 12 standard hours. Fleet's ready. Voss nodded, expression unreadable. He wasn't a warmonger by nature, but he understood power. The Alvari's technology surpassed Earth's in almost every respect, except one. They'll never see it coming, he said quietly. Not from us. Lyra hesitated, then lowered her voice. Sir, you really think this is the only way? He turned to her. The overhead lights caught the faint scar running from his temple to his jaw, a souvenir from a failed operation during the Jovian uprisings. I think we don't get a second chance. Not when they can bend gravity like paper. If we let them decide the rules, we've already lost. No more was said. Meanwhile, a galaxy away, aboard the Alvari diplomatic cruiser Tilisar, High Emissary Kale Dovar studied the human star charts projected across his vessel's command chamber. His 4 elongated fingers traced a route to the Zeta Serpentis. He was flanked by Alis Ruin, a military advisor who had once led a fleet in the border wars 2 decades prior, now called reluctantly back into service. They greet us with silence, Alis muttered in Alvaric, voice like shifting sand. No comms, no escorts. And the location, it stinks of a trap. Kale's translucent eyes shimmered with violet light. Perhaps. But if we are to hold the humans to their claim of peace, we must show them trust. Alis frowned. Trust without readiness is surrender. Kale looked away, to the stars beyond the viewport. And readiness without hope is war everlasting. The Alvari cruiser continued undeterred, unaware that Earth's greatest weapons were hidden in the dark ahead. Back aboard the Arclight Dominion, Voss called an encrypted briefing. Holograms of key fleet captains flared to life across the war table. Commander Resnick of the stealth corvette Viper Edge, Admiral Hawes aboard the orbital cannon barge Orion's Maw, and Major Yusef Kane of the ground deployment team. We strike at point 0, Voss began, tapping coordinates into the hologrid. Target priority is their flagship, cripple engines, disable comms. No disintegration. We want them isolated, not vaporized. Major Kane leaned in. What about survivors? Ground fallback. We deploy squads to Virex 9. Any escape pods will likely aim for its surface. Secure the zone, collect prisoners, and seize tech if possible. Resnick scoffed. Prisoners? These things aren't built for talking. They fight with their minds. One blink, and they'll cook a man's skull. Voss didn't blink. Then make sure they don't blink first. That night, in the officers' quarters, Lyra Mon sat alone, gazing at a message on her wrist pad. Her younger brother had written from the Mars colony, full of questions about the Alvari, wondering if the peace talks would succeed. She hadn't answered. What could she say? That her orders were to slaughter the very emissaries sent to secure peace? She slid the device away and looked out the small viewport. Stars passed like silent witnesses. She followed Voss into countless operations. This one felt different. Colder. Final. 12 hours passed in agonizing quiet. Then the alert tone struck. Target in range, announced the AI's calm voice. Initiating cloaked dissolution. Voss stepped onto the bridge, breath steady. Below, the Alvari ship gleamed like silver glass against the cosmic backdrop, its surface alive with slow-pulsing energy veins. It moved gracefully, unaware of the teeth now bared around it. Begin, Voss ordered. Dozens of human warships emerged from the blackness, weapons armed, trajectory fixed, ion cannons surged to life. Orbital mines activated in synchronized ignition. The asteroid belt itself had been mined. Weaponized collapsed inwards like a steel cage. On the Telsar, alarm shrieked. Kale Dovar rose, stunned. "They're firing," Alis growled. "The humans, this is no accident." Before Kale could respond, the first blast rocked the cruiser. Panels blew open. Support columns snapped like twigs. The ship lurched as gravity flux systems failed, sending crew tumbling. Kale caught himself against the command altar, evasive pattern theta. The ship spun, light wings flaring, but it was too late. An EMP burst hit. Lights died. The stars outside flickered and vanished. All that remained was the echo of betrayal. On Earth, the UDC chamber erupted in applause as the initial wave reports came through. One of the alien ships down. The flagship compromised. The peace faction said nothing, their protests already drowned. Back on Virex 9, Major Kane's squad descended to the moon's sulphurous clouds. Flames from escape pod trails lit up the sky. Alien survivors were on the ground, wounded, angry, and cornered. The second phase of the ambush had begun, but not every human celebrated. In the shadows of the Arclight Dominion's medbay, Lyra stood alone, watching a recovered piece of alien tech pulse in containment. It wasn't a weapon. It emitted a soft harmonic, like music, like language. She looked at it and whispered, "What have we done?" The answer did not come in words, but in the sudden, piercing silence that followed. And somewhere, across the black stretch of stars, vengeance stirred. The darkness between the asteroids cracked open in a blinding spear of light as the Viper Edge launched its first strike, cutting through the silence like a scream. Plasma burst against the Alvari cruiser's hull, sending molten shards spinning into space. Within seconds, the asteroid field erupted into chaos, an ambush no longer in waiting, but in execution. Captain Arlen Voss watched from the Arclight Dominion's command deck, face impassive. All around him, the bridge pulsed with activity. Targeting data scrolled across holograms, enemy ship silhouettes flickered, and crew members barked rapid-fire updates. But he saw only one thing, the Alvari flagship drifting, its graceful arcs now marred by fire and shrapnel. "Status on their response?" he asked. Commander Lyramon's voice was low. "They're scrambling, power cycling, but no coordinated return fire yet. Their systems might be locked or confused." "Good. Keep them confused." The order transmitted across the fleet. The human ships, sleek and jagged, moved like predators, herding the stunned Alvari vessels toward the asteroid choke point. Another blast rocked the enemy's secondary cruiser, an ion charge that fractured its energy shields into glimmering dust. But even in disarray, the Alvari did not die quietly. On the deck of the Telsar, Kale Dovar coughed through the smoke, gripping the edge of a fractured console. Sparks leapt through the air like fireflies gone mad. Alis Ruin hauled him to his feet. Blood from a gash on the emissary's forehead ran down his temple in bright, translucent streaks. "We must withdraw," Alis growled. "This is no battlefield, it's an execution." Kale shook his head. "I will not flee. Open comms. Broadcast a ceasefire signal. Our transmitter's down. They've jammed all channels." Kale looked out the viewport. A human dreadnought was turning, lining up its final shot. He exhaled slowly. "Then we need to survive long enough to make them listen." A blast rocked the ship. The hull cracked along its starboard curve. Emergency force fields flickered into place, barely holding atmosphere. On Virex 9, the skies burned orange. Alvari escape pods tore across the stratosphere like falling stars. Major Yusef Kane's boots slammed into the dusty moon's surface as his drop pod unfolded around him. The wind was sharp and bitter, carrying the tang of sulfur. His HUD lit up with terrain scans and biosigns. 3, maybe 4 pods had crashed less than a kilometer east. "Spread and sweep," Kane ordered. His squad fanned out, plasma rifles gleaming under the moon's dying light. He moved like a machine, precision trained, emotion buried. But beneath the cold commands was a man who had seen too much. His boots crunched over brittle rock, until he came upon the wreckage of an Alvari pod. Its hull had cracked like an egg, smoke rising in curls. He raised his weapon and froze. Inside, 2 Alvari, one badly injured, the other a youth, barely more than a child by their physiology. The younger one looked up, wide-eyed, chest heaving, not reaching for a weapon, just breathing. Kane hesitated. Then, from his left flank, a shot rang out. The injured adult slumped forward, lifeless. "Confirmed kill," reported one of his troopers, stepping forward. Kane didn't speak. His eyes remained on the child, who was now backing away slowly, trembling. "Orders, Major?" asked the trooper. Kane looked down at the trembling creature. "Secure it. Don't harm it." The trooper raised a brow, but nodded. Back in orbit, the Alvari cruiser spun, like a wounded bird. Its main engines flared erratically. The humans pressed the advantage. On the Orion's maw, Admiral Halls gave the firing command with a grin. "Big gun online. Let's end this." The orbital cannon glowed with infernal light, drawing power from its tricore reactor. The shot pierced space, striking the Alvari's last functional escort. A brilliant explosion painted the battlefield with debris and plasma fire. On board the Arclight Dominion, Lyra's hands hovered over the tactical panel. Her screen showed the damage radius from a blast. Alvari escape pods, hundreds of them, now floated in freefall or spiraled toward the moon. She looked at Voss. "We're cutting down an unarmed envoy. We came to silence them, not just win." Voss didn't flinch. "Silence is victory. If they can't signal the galaxy, we control the narrative." "Is that what this is about now?" she asked, voice tight. "Perception?" Voss stepped closer, voice like stone. "This is about survival, Commander. If they regroup, they come back with a fleet that warps gravity and shatters matter with sound. We strike first. We strike hard." She said nothing, but her fingers trembled slightly as she turned back to console. Below on Virex 9, Kane's team encountered heavy resistance. Some Alvari survivors were soldiers, fierce and fast, using energy whips and psychic disruption. One human fell, screaming as blood streamed from his eyes, his mind overpowered before he could pull the trigger. Kane responded with brutal precision. Grenades, barges, flamethrowers. The terrain lit up in red and green pulses. Alvari bodies crumpled, burned, vanished. And yet, it wasn't a victory he could feel. At the edge of a crag, he found the young one again, the child they had captured. It had not spoken, not even once. Now it sat with knees drawn to chest, humming something low and mournful. Kane crouched nearby. "You have a name?" No answer. He tried again. "Why did they send you?" Still silence. Then a whisper, faint, melodic, not in English, but his translator caught a piece of it. "We came to stop the dying." Kane looked away, back in space. As the last of the Alvari ships flickered and dimmed, a sudden spike registered on the Dominion scanners. "Sir," Lyra said sharply, "we're detecting a strange energy pulse. Not a weapon signature. It's broadcasting." Voss leaned in. "From where?" "Some kind of core beacon on the Alvari cruiser. It's still active." A beat of silence passed. "Shut it down," Voss said. But the signal was already moving, fast, encoded in frequencies that human tech couldn't decipher. It wasn't a distress call. It was a memory. Kale Dovar, still alive within the fractured command chamber of his dying ship, knelt before the beacon. Alis lay unconscious beside him. With a final breath, Kale pressed his palm to the core, sending the recording, a montage of the battle, of the human betrayal of faces and names, into the vast data streams of deep space. Let them see. Let them all see. A moment later, the beacon core exploded. The Tele-Sar shattered in a silent blaze of light. On the Arclight Dominion, Voss watched the destruction, unaware that a seed had just been planted. Not vengeance, not retribution. Witness. And far across the stars, ancient Alvari sentinels began to stir. The silence after the battle was not peace. It was something colder, an absence that made even the stars seem distant and indifferent. In the aftermath, the human fleet hung in orbit over Virex, 9 like vultures circling a corpse. Wreckage drifted between them. Twisted pieces of Alvari steel, carbon-score debris, and flickering escape pods with no more signals left to send. Aboard the Arclight Dominion, Captain Voss stood alone in the war room, the only light coming from the holomap still displaying the battleground. He replayed the last 10 seconds of the Alvari beacon transmission on a loop. It was encrypted, unbreakable, even for Dominion intelligence. That fact alone disturbed him more than he cared to admit. "Commander Mon," he said without looking up, knowing she was waiting in the shadows beyond the door. She stepped forward. "Still no luck cracking it?" "No, but I know what a message meant to be seen looks like." She hesitated. "So it got through?" "Somewhere," he replied. "We just don't know where or to whom." They stood in silence. Outside, the fleet began its slow reformation, preparing to withdraw and report success to Council. "Do you think the Council will care?" Lyra asked. Voss finally turned. "They'll care if it costs them power. Until then, they'll call it a clean operation. And the prisoners? We have 5 in holding. Interrogation begins at 0600, including the child." Lyra's face hardened, but she said nothing. She had already voiced her discomfort too many times. Voss didn't have time for hesitation. The enemy had been crushed, but Kale's final act had sown seeds no one could predict. If there were others out there, hidden Alvari strongholds, sleeper ships, allies, they would know the truth before the humans could bury it. Miles below, the lunar winds howled over the jagged rocks of Virex 9. In a subterranean holding unit within Outpost Vega, Major Kane stood behind a reinforced glass wall, arms crossed, gaze locked on the being sitting quietly inside. The Alvari child, he still didn't have a name for it, had not moved since capture. It didn't eat, didn't speak, just hummed sometimes. A strange, low rhythm that vibrated faintly through the walls. It had no visible injuries, and its neural scans were unreadable, like it was operating on a frequency they couldn't decode. Kane had tried talking. Nothing worked. Now, others wanted answers. Dr. Laurel, a xenopsychologist with the fleet's research division, adjusted her glasses as she approached. Permission to enter the holding chamber? Kane didn't answer right away. What are you hoping to get from it? Context. Maybe even understanding. We underestimated them once. I'd rather not repeat the mistake. He gave a short nod. You've got 10 minutes. Don't push it. Laurel entered, walking slowly. No weapons, no translator device active. She sat opposite the child and waited. After 3 minutes of silence, the child looked up. You burned us, it said softly. Laurel blinked. You speak English? No. You hear the parts you understand. She straightened, intrigued. What is your name? The child tilted its head. Names are for the known. You don't know us. Laurel leaned forward. Then help us understand. Why come here? Why risk so much? The child's gaze did not waver. We came because your edge was breaking. You were unraveling. The war in your stars, the silence in your hearts. We tried to bring balance. And instead, we attacked. You feared what you didn't recognize. Laurel nodded slowly. Maybe we saw too clearly. The child's eyes dimmed, the faint glow at their center pulsing once. You'll hear the echo soon. Not from us. From those who remembered. She shivered. It wasn't a threat, not exactly. It was prophecy. Elsewhere in orbit, aboard the research frigate Lyra's Grace, a lone signal technician stared in disbelief at her terminal. The encrypted Alvari transmission, what they thought had vanished, had returned, but not as data, as light. It pulsed across the nearby star cluster, subtle and rhythmic. A series of solar flares mimicking the beacon's signal pattern. Someone or something had harnessed stellar bodies to repeat the message, a warning encoded in the language of creation itself. Commander Juno Slade, newly assigned to the Lyra's Grace, received the report with furrowed brows. Can we track its origin? No, the technician said, but it's moving outward, faster than light, like it's skipping through gravitational wells. Juno turned to the viewport. A sliver of dread crept into her voice. It's a call to arms. Back at the Dominion command ship, Lyra received the same report. She stormed into Voss's quarters without knocking. He barely acknowledged her, still reviewing tactical reports from the Alvari wreckage. "The beacon is being repeated through stars now," she said. "It's reached beyond our charted zones. You need to inform the Council." "They already know," Voss said quietly, "and they've authorized Phase 2. "Phase 2?" she asked, startled. "We find every Alvari colony, every archive, every whisper of their existence, and we erase it." She stared at him. "That's genocide. That's preemptive survival." She stepped forward. "Kale, Dovar wasn't a soldier. He was a diplomat. What if the Alvari weren't planning war? What if this all started because we fired first?" Voss didn't flinch. "Then they should have been faster to surrender." "You sound like them," she said softly. Voss stood, eyes hard. "No, I sound like someone who wants our species to see another sunrise." She turned and left, but in her chest, something had fractured. Down below, Kane reviewed footage from the battlefield. Something didn't sit right. Not the way the Alvari fought. They had defended, yes, but rarely attacked unless provoked. And there were gaps in their behavior. Missing aggression. Strategic retreats that didn't make sense. He called in a favor. An old friend from intelligence sent a file, heavily redacted. Pre-war encounters with Alvari vessels that showed the same patterns. In each one, the Alvari had been the first to attempt peaceful contact. None of them had survived past the first engagement. Kane stared at the reports. One line repeated in every debrief. "No survivors to testify." The pieces clicked. "Voss knew," he whispered. In the holding cell, the Alvari child stopped humming. It looked up at the ceiling, as if sensing the world changing. Then, slowly it smiled, not with joy, with knowing, because far beyond Virex 9 in the black between galaxies, vast ships began to stir. Not Alvari, but something older, something ancient enough to have forgotten peace, something that had heard the message and remembered, and they were already moving. The stars no longer blinked in silence. From the void beyond the mapped edge of human reach, they came, not with the elegance of the Alvari nor the brute design of Earth's warships, but as cathedrals of motionless gravity, their hulls darker than space itself. They did not transmit demands. They did not speak. They simply arrived, on the bridge of the Arclight Dominion. Captain Voss watched the anomaly drift into sensor range. No known propulsion. No energy spikes. It moved like a thought, impossible, seamless. "What is that?" Commander Lyramon asked, her voice low but steady. Voss shook his head. "It's not Alvari." "No, it's older." Dozens of other ships appeared, fanning out like teeth in a closing jaw. The nearest vessel dwarfed even the largest human dreadnoughts. Its shape defied geometry, spires of fluid motion and impossible symmetry, constantly shifting yet remaining whole. "Are we being scanned?" Lyra asked. The tech officer shook his head, panicked. "No data. It's like our sensors aren't seeing anything at all. Just presence." Voss knew what he was looking at. Not tactically, not even strategically, existentially. He opened a private channel to Central Command on Earth. "Prepare contingency code, 0 trace." On Virex 9, Major Kane stood at the edge of Outpost Vega's excavation zone, staring up at the sky. His soldiers had gone quiet. Every man and woman had felt the shift, a pressure against the mind, like standing too close to something vast and wordless. He turned as Dr. Laurel approached, her tablet flashing with new readings. "Still think they're just ancient relics?" he asked. She didn't answer immediately. "Their engines bend time signatures. I just recorded a moment that already happened 10 minutes from now." Kane blinked. "What?" "They're not bound by causality. I think they're listening backward, watching the past before they act in the future." Kane looked at the sky again. "Then we've already failed." In the holding chamber, the Alvari child stood now, arms extended, eyes glowing like twin galaxies. The security systems failed. Cameras burned out, locks disengaged. But the child made no move to flee. Lyra had come personally. She entered alone. You called them, she said. The child tilted its head. We remembered their silence. They remembered our song. Who are they? They were the ones we silenced once. When we became what you are now. Lyra stepped closer. You're telling me the Alvari were like us? Once. Until we forgot the cost. She swallowed, voice tight. So this is vengeance? No. Balance. She reached for her communicator, hesitated. Can they be reasoned with? The child's smile was soft. You are speaking to them now. Aboard the Lyra's Grace. The alien fleet had surrounded the orbiting vessels. No weapons fired. No threat issued. Then a message appeared. Not words. Not even symbols. Just a sensation. A feeling transmitted into every living being within reach. Human or Alvari. Remembrance. It was accompanied by visions. Not illusions, but imprints. Memories. Lyra collapsed to her knees. Clutching her skull as a flood of sensation consumed her. She saw cities of light turn to ash. A chorus of languages snuffed out in one breath. Civilizations burning not from hate, but from necessity. And always, the silence that followed. Kane dropped to one knee on the surface of Virex 9. His eyes wide, mouth trembling, breath caught in a scream he couldn't release. He saw children turn to dust. Lovers evaporated mid-embrace. The annihilation of knowledge, of beauty, of flawed but thriving life, by the very hands who once swore to protect it. Voss, high in orbit, experienced something different. He saw himself, centuries before or centuries ahead, giving the same orders, wearing the same face, leading the same fleet. This is what you become, the vision whispered, not because you are evil, but because you choose not to remember. When the images faded, the bridge was silent. Lyra stood, her breathing shallow. That was a trial. Voss nodded slowly. And we were judged. Then, from the largest alien ship, a pulse emitted, not destructive, but clarifying. Systems across every human vessel synchronized in a harmonic echo. Data streams aligned. Logs recompiled. And then came the truth. Footage buried deep in black archives. Communications sealed by executive order. Audio from the first Alvari approach to Earth's border colonies. Word of peace, of cultural exchange, of unity. And orders. Voss's voice, commanding silence, obliteration, erasure. The Council had never intended to speak. They had seen alien advancement as an existential threat and responded in kind. Across Earth colonies and military networks, the truth erupted. Uprisings ignited. Some rallied behind Voss, claiming the aliens manipulated the message. Others saw clarity. Redemption. War. Back aboard the Arclight Dominion, Lyra watched Voss as if seeing him for the first time. You knew, from the beginning, I acted to protect humanity. You acted to protect control. He stepped forward, voice steely. Do you believe we'd survive a galaxy where we aren't the apex? No, she said, but maybe we don't deserve to. He reached for his weapon, but she was faster. One shot. Voss fell, the great strategist undone not by an alien fleet, but by the conscience he trained into silence. Kane received the news moments later. The Dominion was no longer transmitting under Voss's command. New orders came down. Decentralize power. Disband the fleet. Initiate diplomatic outreach. It wasn't enough, but it was something. On Virex 9, Kane released the Alvari child into the open. No restraints. No guards. The child turned to him. Will they change? I don't know, he said, but I will. It nodded. Then that is a beginning. The alien ships did not fire. They stayed in orbit for 3 days, unmoving. Then, as silently as they arrived, they vanished. Not a retreat, a waiting. And across the galaxy, the stars seemed to blink a little brighter, not in menace, but in watchfulness. A reminder that peace is not the absence of war, but the memory of it. And Earth, wounded and wary, turned its face to the stars, uncertain whether it saw allies or witnesses.